No, I have a distinct memory of giving a presentation. Richie came off a third shift, and we were in the conference room in Parksburg, and I had just been director of brewing for like 6 months or a year. So I'm like trying to like absorb this new role, manage this new team. I have all these new hires and trying to figure it out myself too, being new to the position. And I just remember Richie was so tired. He was like you were barely keeping your eyes open. And I was like trying to engage with you. I was trying to engage with everyone because I was like reading a lot of books about leadership and trying to become a better boss and manager. And I didn't really have any experience managing folks until this time. So, they kind of got my first dose of me being a boss, and I was trying to engage with Reg, and he was just like struggling, and I was like, I don't think it's because he doesn't care. I think he's just really dead.
Welcome back to BrewedAt Podcast. I'm your host, Richie Tevlin, joined as always by Evan Blum.
Hello.
And today we have on James Gentile from Workhorse Brewing Company, Head of Brewing Operations. Head of Brewing Operations. So James was my boss twice at Victory.
Hired Richie twice.
Hired me twice. I've known you since, 2017 maybe?
Yeah, I thought it was
2018?
Yeah,
16?
it had to be at least 17. I thought it was 2016, but it must have been 17 then.
Somewhere around there.
Whenever you started at Victory.
Yeah, and now you're brewing beer for me at Workhorse.
It all comes full circle.
So it comes very full circle, but we're excited to have you on. I know you have a rich brewing history with Victory and even before that, so we want to get kind of into all of it.
Cool.
Awesome. So I guess where should we start? I guess college? Do we want to talk about Workhorse first? Okay.
So I went to Virginia Tech.
Cool.
I studied industrial engineering there. I graduated in 2010, but in 2008, I took a year off to do a co-op. I took a break from college. I did, I don't know if anyone's familiar with co-ops, but, basically I did a year-long internship with Johnson & Johnson in New Jersey.
Yeah.
And that was great. It taught me that I didn't want to work in a cubicle. That my 3 years in engineering so far was going well, but it was not a path that I wanted to pursue in like maybe the true sense of it. And I started getting a knack for beer around then in 2008. Kind of got that bug. I drank my first Dogfish at 60 Minute. I remember it well. That was the first like eye-opening, like, holy shit, this can be beer. And back then, craft in general was really small. Like you'd go into the beer stores and it would only be a very small portion, maybe a few six-packs from like Dogfish. You had, of course, Boston Beer, Sam Adams, Sierra Nevada. You had like your larger ones in New Jersey where I'm from and where I was doing this internship. So it's pretty hard to find craft breweries. I actually bought a book. I think Lou Bryson wrote it. It was Craft Breweries of New Jersey, and it was like, go see them all 21. And you got a little pass for it, and you'd go and like check them off as you went. And I tried to do as many as I could, but somewhere in the southern part of the state that I couldn't get to. But it was fun and cute. And I remember going to Riverhorse as like my first brewery tour when they were still in Lambertville, and going to Princeton Homebrew and buying the homebrew kit and starting the liquid malt.
While you were in the co-op?
Yeah, so while I was doing the co-op, started homebrewing. Went back to Virginia Tech, finished my degree. Knew I kind of had J&J as a fallback, but in the back of my mind, I was like, I wonder if I could get a job brewing beer. Mm-hmm. So my wife, now, she was my girlfriend in college. She graduated on schedule, 2009, and moved to Arlington, Virginia, and took a job and she studied biological engineering. We met in freshman year of general engineering class, dorkiest meeting ever, and prettiest girl in the whole class. But so we lived together, or I wanted to move in with her after college. And I thought, well, let me see some breweries around Arlington and DC and just like hand them my resume or see how I can get in. And I actually met somebody who started a brewery in Blacksburg, Virginia called Blacksburg Brewing Company, John Bryce. He's like he's like
I've heard of
the NBA podcast on a national scale.
Wow.
He came and guest lectured at Virginia Tech in the brewing science class that I took just for S's and G's. I asked to interview him for a paper I was working on. We had a couple beers. After it, I was like, hey, I'm trying to get in the industry. Can you help me out? He worked at Capital City Brewing up in Northern Virginia, D.C. He passed my resume along to the brewmaster there. Nothing. I'm still not looking for a job. I'm about to graduate in like a few months. Then all of a sudden they emailed me like, hey, one of our brewers is leaving. We have an opening. Are you interested? I went up and interviewed for a keg washer truck driver job. I remember going to this interview and telling all my engineering friends, I'm going to do this interview. I'm just going to wear a flannel and a t-shirt and jeans. And everyone's like, you're out of your mind. You got to wear a suit. Like, no one does an interview in like a t-shirt. And I was like, trust me, I feel like if I go to this brewing interview in a suit, they're going to laugh me out of the building. Like, I am 22 years old. I have no experience. They're going to be like, he has no idea what he's getting himself into.
In college, I went to a beer distributor up in Reading, an interview up there. I didn't get the job, but I went there in a suit.
Yeah.
They all gave me looks like...
When brewers show up to interview with me, like, and they're like, there's one brewer that was really dressed up that I did hire, and...
who did? What's his name?
Curtis?
What, did Curtis wear a suit?
Curtis showed up in one of the wildest get-ups.
That's
like,
so
it was
funny.
like a...
Because Curtis, I don't see him normally in a suit.
No.
So
I forget the material. It was like a seersucker jacket and like this paisley shirt. And I was like, dude, what are you? Who is this guy? And then like he interviewed well, and we hired and we worked together at Victory, and love Curtis. But yeah, anyway, he's one of the few that like showed up in a suit that I did hire. Not that a lot of brewers show up in suits, so we're not suit wearing. But I changed into this new shirt that I got from our retail because I was kegging beer and gross, and I was like, let me wear something a little nicer to get to this. But got the job at Capital City to be this driver. $12 an hour. Absolutely sunk the average starting salary for our graduating class at that range when it was like typically like $65K for everyone, all my colleagues or higher. And I'm like, yeah, $12 an hour. That equates to nothing. But within a few months, they started teaching me how to brew. And that was really cool. It was a 15-barrel JV Northwest system, 2-vessel. Had a hot liquor tank. We had a plate and frame sheet filter, all brass bright tanks behind the bar. Really old school, very 90s craft beer. So
what was it, Capital City?
Capital City Brewing Company. They actually don't exist anymore. I think they went out of business or at least closed the brewery extension in like 2016.
But it was like a brew pub also?
It was a brew. So yeah, it was a brew pub, yeah. So we had a location in Arlington, Virginia, the section of Arlington called Shirlington, which is very close to Alexandria. And then there was another brew pub there were two in DC, one at 11th and H that did not have a brew house, and one next to Union Station attached to the Postal Museum.
Cool.
And that one did have a brew house. That was a mechanical. I think that was like a 10 or 15 also, but it was like up 2 flights of stairs, and you had to grain out into like trash bags and carry them down flights of stairs. I remember falling down the stairs in the rain with like a bag of mash on my shoulders, like bruising every bone in my ass. And like, I need to just sit down for a while.
There's a second story brewing in Old City.
Okay.
I think that they have to like mash through a second story thing. It's the same deal. I mean, it's not in operation anymore because I imagine it's a nightmare, but
Capital City was founded by an individual in DC that had salons and gyms, and I think he saw the opportunity of craft beer, being in the 90s. There was that big boom in the 90s that I wasn't around for. You guys weren't around for, but it did one of those big plummets, and everyone was getting into it, and a lot of those kind of fizzled out in the 2000s. And Cap City, I think, lasted because they kind of grabbed a little part of DC and DC didn't really have a lot of breweries back then. I was telling Evan that when I started brewing in that area, DC had 3 breweries. It was Capital City, Gordon Biersch, and District Chop House.
What about DC Brau? Was that
DC
there?
Brau didn't exist yet.
Wow.
DC Brau opened in 2011, so like a year into it. And I remember them coming into town, and I was like, man, DC Brau is cool. Like, those are the cool guys. They're all tatted up. They're like, they're metal. They're edgy. Everything else was like kind of like this more like cookie cut. Gordon Biersch is what it is. Like it's they all kind of look the same. They all kind of make similar styles, and they could kind of do a little bit of this on the side. So DC Brau didn't exist yet. They were brewery number 4, if I recall. Then Chocolate City. There were a few more after that. It's the pebble started to tumble and become more of a stone in that area. But everyone in DC and Northern Virginia was really tight. I knew all the brewers at all the breweries. There's only like maybe like 9 or so. Every weekend we were at all the beer fests. We had to pour. There weren't volunteers.
And you were delivering beer?
We were delivering beer to our pubs. It was like one day you'd brew, one day you'd filter, one day you'd drive a truck and lug kegs around, and you just kind of rotated. And it was fun. But I knew that there was more to learn out there. And this was 2012. I'm from New Jersey. My wife's from Pennsylvania. I saw Victory announce a big expansion in Parksburg, PA. They're putting in this huge, $50 million brew house. And at that point, 2012 was when things really started to pick up. And like steam was, it was like, let's go. Rocket ships were blasting off left and right. I think at that point, Sierra had announced like...
Was that Asheville?
Asheville. Like breweries were putting in their second brewery. It was like that wave of like the big guys were like, hey, Deschutes is like, we need something in Roanoke. Yeah, that's right. New Belgium went to Asheville as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dale's came to North Carolina. There was like a lot of growth, and Victory announced that big expansion. I'm like, okay, let me apply for a brewer here. This place is kind of on the up. Let me get in when the wave's growing, right? Like, this pub that I work at is great. We were steady around 2,000, 2,500 barrels a year, which is good. A lot of breweries would love to be, 2,500 barrels a year at 3 pubs self-distributing. There's a lot of money to be made there. But
that was like Victory in 3 days.
Yeah, dude. Yeah. So I go to Victory. I got the job as a brewer. In DC, I rode my bike. I didn't have a car, so I took this job, and I'm like, I'll just bike to work. And then like, I remember them being like, you're going to be packaging first shift to start. We start at 6 a.m. And I got an apartment in Westchester, and Downingtown is about 9 miles away. And 9 miles on a bike isn't that bad, but I had a single speed fixed gear bike because I was in DC and it's flat, and I only biked like 4 miles, 5 miles tops, no brakes. And I'm like going through these rolling hills of Chester County at 5 a.m. with like a light up reflective vest on, looking like a guy that can't drive a car because he has too many DUIs on my way to the brewery to work my shift. And then I'd be done. And I remember starting in June, and it was like 95 degrees the whole week, and like pedaling my ass back to Westchester, just like covered in sweat. I lost a lot of weight in those first 3 months. And then I finally was like, I got to get a car. This is getting a little ridiculous, especially second shift, because we didn't have a third back then. So you'd stay until the work was done. And sometimes in packaging, a lot can go wrong in brewing days and production world. And when you don't have that shift after you, when you're the last one to go, Richie knows this all too well. Like
extended.
Oh my God, you're there till midnight, and then I'm biking home at midnight. And I'm like, this is stupid. Like
How long was the ride?
I could do the 9 miles about like 30, 35 minutes.
Oh, but still, that's exhausting.
Especially like after being on your feet all day. Like it's like I remember thinking some of the shifts, I was like, last thing I want to do is get on my bike right now. My wife did start, girlfriend at the time, she did start picking me up. But those second shifts would get extended, so she'd like go at the bar and just like wait for me, and she's just drinking, and like then I'm driving us home. Like it was entertaining but it was short lived. And got the car, stayed at Victory. Worked my way from brewer to senior brewer to brewing manager to director of brewing ops by 2016.
When you got there in 2012, was there Sour Monkey there yet?
No.
Wow. That's interesting, actually.
The biggest beer when I got there in 2012 was Hop Devil.
Wow.
Really?
You remember that one?
Yeah.
Hop Devil.
Golden Monkey was out at that point.
Golden Monkey existed and was a big part of the Victory portfolio, but it was not. It may have been 3. Primo was a big dog. Okay. And Headwaters was a big beer for Victory back in like that time, because Headwaters just got launched like 2010. And Headwaters had great first few years. And Summer Love was one of these things where like, I remember being...
When I first started drinking beer in 2012, craft beer, and Summer Love was, that was the hottest thing. And I remember, I don't remember when Sour Monkey came out, but I remember that was like the first cool beer that we had the big bottle of.
Summer Love was smoking hot for its first several years. I remember it growing like 5,000 barrels a year.
Wow.
Which was a lot,
for one brand.
For one brand, to have it grow from like 10 to 15 to 20, like, I might be exaggerating those numbers a bit, but I remember being very distinctively large jumps. But then Golden Monkey overtook Hop Devil. Hop Devil kind of started to decline maybe like 15, 16. And that was interesting because Hop Devil kind of built a lot of Victory, and Prima built a lot of Victory, and some of those beers, they still exist, but there's such a small...
I feel like I see more Hop Devil Nitro out randomly in the market than just normal Hop Devil.
I went to the D-Town pub a few weeks ago to have dinner with my family, and they had Hop Devil like on regular, standard pour, and I was like so excited because I was like, I haven't had it this way. And it was super fresh because they must have just done a batch, and like it was great. I actually wanted to like pick up a case because I was like, this beer is like a little bit of nostalgia for me. No one's really doing malt hop driven beers anymore like that. That style has kind of gone away. It might be making a resurgence, who knows. But But yeah, that style kind of got weeded out and turned into, I remember introducing Dirt Wolf and that being like a big deal. That was one of the first beers that Victory dry hopped on a regular basis.
And it was still all whole cone hops?
It started as all whole flower hops, yes.
When you were there, was it all whole flower?
Yes. We did not have any pellets. It was all the Hopnick in the D-Town brew house. And you'd have to fill that up with flour, pack it in, and then you loop it through. And I am I drank the Kool-Aid long enough that I worked there for 8 years. I'm a believer in whole flower hops. I do think it makes a difference in the beer and it makes a difference in the dry hop.
But just the logistics. I mean, having like the hop preparer.
Sure. Yeah. Anyone who's cut out hops for an entire shift knows it's so much more work versus like weighing out pellets now. You're like, scoop, 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 I'm done.
Can you explain this process a little bit to me for somebody that hasn't seen like what that would be?
Sure. Like what?
Have you seen like hop pellets?
Yeah.
Like little rabbit turds.
Yeah.
It's like before they're that.
Yeah, before they're pelletized, they grow on a vine. They grow about up 15, 20 feet in the air on these vines. They're trained on plants or on a twine rather to grow up them. They produce these hop cones. They look like they're a cousin of marijuana. They look like weed. So they've
seen that.
Yeah. So they have these big. Some of the buds are real tiny. Some are real long. But folks take them, they mash them down, they pelletize them, and then they can pack them into nitrogen, and the shelf life is much better. And that's how most brewers work with hops. Is they take the material that's been macerated, it's been pelletized, and stored in this very shelf stable package, if you will, so that the hop doesn't degrade. As a hop is exposed, like whole flower hops, wrapped up in a bale, are going to have more oxygen ingress, and that's going to kind of oxidize the hop and make it worse over time, and also deplete how potent it is from both an aroma flavor, but also its bitterness impact into the beer, which is
it has like more vegetal matter. Like it tastes different.
It's cheesy. So it's not. Working with pellets is probably a lot more practical for a lot more brewers. Whole flower barrels take up a lot more space. Like you have. American hop growers pack their bales into their 100-pound bales, and they're really big. There's the size of this table basically, and 100 pounds the size of this table is not very manageable to move around. So the logistics of storing them, moving them, and then I cut that bale open and I have to cut the hops out. They're packed kind of tight, so you have to kind of like massage them out into a hop bucket. So when you get them into the kettle or into a dry hop, all of them get touched with some level of beer or wort or whatever, and get so they can extract all the good aspects that you're trying to get out of that hop. The Germans pack theirs much tighter. They fit about 100 kilos in a smaller bale, and their bales are so much nicer to work with. But they pack a lot. They just make a lot more effort to squeeze a lot more hop into the bale. But they have to also ship it overseas. There's a lot of reasons to do what they do. But yes, I do think it makes a difference when you're running a whole flower cone through a machine to pelletize it. It does change the hop a little bit along the way compared to a whole flower hop. I do think if you have a beer that is entirely whole flower hop, like Sierra Nevada still uses whole flower hops versus a lot of other breweries who have to use pellets because that's more practical. There are some subtle differences, but you're talking about shades of gray, and you're talking about folks that have been in the industry for years and years and years and like are looking at things under a microscope. Yeah, I think I could tell the difference, but
but consumer probably wouldn't be able to by any means.
I don't think so. And I think that's the truth of a lot of the breweries these days about what we're doing and how we're marketing things and what makes my
pellets are kind of idiot proof too. It's like I feel like if you don't treat them right, like the beer comes out really bad. Where pellets, like as long as you're keeping them like cold, like they're packed in nitrogen. They're pretty safe.
Yeah.
I forgot what we were talking about though.
No, we're just talking about Victory. My experience there. So I got to hire Richie. I remember he came from Flying Dog.
Yeah.
What year was this?
20. I thought it was 16, but maybe it must have been 17. You know your start date better than I. But I hired Richie. He worked in the cellar. He was an animal. It was great. He was a group of a great crop with Steve McMillan.
I think he came in the shoot also.
He might have.
Or when he applied for some role, I remember seeing him in the shoot one time. I was like, all right, it's a little bit different in a brewery.
But I remember Richie was living in Philly and was like commuting and working like night shifts sometime, and I think it was like really rough.
It's terrible. There's 3 spots on 76 that I know I can pull over and go pee.
Yeah.
I mean, there's not even like you can't even pull off and go to a gas station, and it's like coming off like an overnight night shift where you're drinking coffee, like
Oh man.
you have to pee.
Yeah.
I mean, 76 sucks too.
Yeah.
So you got the spots.
I used to smoke Black & Miles on drives home just to stay awake from third shift because I was like, this is dumb. Like, I just need something
Yeah.
to smoke. Like,
Yeah.
anyway, no, I have a distinct memory of giving a presentation. Richie came off a third shift, and we were in the conference room in Parksburg, and I had just been director of brewing for like 6 months or a year. So I'm like trying to like absorb this new role, manage this new team. I have all these new hires and trying to figure it out myself too, being new to the position. And I just remember Richie was so tired. He was like you were barely keeping your eyes open. And I was like trying to engage with you. I was trying to engage with everyone because I was like reading a lot of books about leadership and trying to become a better boss and manager. And I didn't really have any experience managing folks until this time. So, they kind of got my first dose of me being a boss. And I was trying to engage with Reg, and he was just like struggling. And I was like, I don't think it's because he doesn't care. I think he's just really dead tired.
This episode of the BrewedAt podcast is brought to you by Zilka & Co., your trusted regional brewing supply partner. Family owned for over 100 years of business, Zilka delivers world-class products at competitive prices with flat $5 delivery fee. No pallet or liftgate charges, thanks to their own fleet of regularly maintained trucks. With locations in Allentown and Hunker and a technical brewer on staff, they provide the expertise and service your brewery deserves. Reach out to Brad Adelson in the show notes and let him know BrewedAt sent you.
I did not do well with third shift.
No one does. You got to be a special person to do well
Yeah.
with third shift. Like, third shift is a different animal for a lot of people. Like, you got to be able to sleep during the day.
There's a third shift person. I feel like there's the
third
personality,
shift person, yeah.
and it's like they will like playing video games. It's like they normally like playing video games. Like they have like this I feel like they have like an online community.
They're single.
They're single because it's like you can't live in normal society when you're working overnight.
No, for sure.
You're draping up your windows to go to sleep.
Yeah.
You got sound machines like a baby.
Yeah, I remember I had trash bags duct taped to my windows to like black them out.
Yeah.
How long did you do third shift, and like did it change like every
Well, it kind
weeks
of.
or something?
I remember we were doing different stuff. We like rotate different ways.
Yeah.
Because nobody wants to do it. So like if no one can do it, then like you have to rotate through. It's like nose goes. Like let's do third shift.
Yeah.
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 I don't know. There's no way around it though. It's like the beer has to get made. So
Yeah, back
it's just part of the industry. People don't realize like if you become a brewer, like you are a factory worker.
Yes.
Like, you have to go work in a factory. You can't just not do that shift. Like the brewery gets so busy, it just you have to be brewing like 24/7.
Yeah. I feel like it looks very romantic from the outside in. And then when you're in it, you go, oh, it's not a bunch of guys like squirting each other with hoses and like drink. Everyone's like, oh, like they see me tasting beer. They're like, oh, I wish I could have your job. I'm like, I don't want to drink this right now. Like it's 8 a.m. Like the last thing I want to do is check for diacetyl right now. But we have to. Like it's part of the job.
I drove some guy that worked at the Coca-Cola plant yesterday, and I'm asking him about it. He's like, I hate Coca-Cola. He's like, I've been here for 10 years. I hate it.
Yeah, it was like my Nestle job when I was working at the warehouse.
Couldn't drink water anymore.
Well, they give you a lot of free water, which was cool, but like the shifts were insane.
Yeah.
The warehouse workers were strictly night shift. Like, I think we had like 50 like constant 24/7.
Yeah.
It is just crazy stuff.
Yeah, you need 24. A lot of these places you need 24/7. Sometimes I wish we had 24 hours, but we're still a little too small for that. But like Victory definitely needed.
How much better? Like it's not having third shift when you have second shift. It's like you have to then, like you said before, you have to shut down at the end of the night. You have to wait, and then you have to start everything back up in the morning. Like
Yes.
these machines are meant to keep running. So if you just don't have to shut them down and you just cycle them through, you it's not like you gain like a third more efficiency. You're like way more efficient.
Yeah. And process size wise, Victory is pretty large. The brew house in Downingtown was 50 barrels. The largest fermenters there were 400. So you'd have to do 8 consecutive brews to fill one of those. And you needed 24 hours to do 8 consecutive turns. Parksburg, the brewery for Victory in Parksburg was 200 barrels. They had 1,000 barrel tanks. You do 4 or 5 consecutive brews, and you didn't need 24, but you needed a lot of time. Filtration, you needed 24 hours for. I remember some of the hazy IPA. Cloudwalker was a 24-hour filtration.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It was so slow. And then bottling and canning, when I left Victory, it was 2020. Things were just, we were 4 months into the pandemic, and people were drinking like there was no tomorrow because they thought there was no tomorrow. And I just remember, that was after the second time I hired Richie for the Philly innovation position, which is great. I knew he lived in Philly. He was a great brewer. It was a win-win. It was an awesome, I was really glad he came back and interviewed for that position.
But then I went back to doing the same thing that I was doing, which then I think you were working shifts also at the end.
Yes.
So it got Victor was making so much beer that it was like
everyone was working.
Yeah.
Everyone was pulling whatever weight they had to pull to get the job, to get across the finish line. It was just absolutely.
I remember we got the essential worker thing, and I was just like, why am I making beer? And I was like, no, I'm essential. People need to be drinking.
Yeah. People were drinking so much. Remember we started giving out so many bonuses for weekend shifts for packaging.
Yeah.
Wow.
And we couldn't it wasn't, no amount of money could be enough. At some point, everyone was just burnt out.
Yeah.
It'd be like, all right, on top of your salary and time and a half, a $500 bonus, come in and can some beer. And it's people were just like, no.
Just tired.
I've been working nonstop for so long. I cannot anymore.
And it wasn't like there's other things to do. It's not like I was like, I need to go on vacation. It was there was just people were drinking so much.
It was wild. I remember hiring Richie for the position, and just like any brewery project, there were delays. We were like, okay, it's going to open in, let's just say, June or whatever. And then it was like, well, why don't you come on now? And remember, you used to do cellar work. Can you do that again for a little bit? It'll just be 2 months. It'll just be 4 months. It's going to be a year. It just kept getting kicked down the road because that project kept getting delayed. And I actually left Victory. It was August 2020, and the Philly thing wasn't even up yet. You were still kind of pulling shifts in Parksburg and doing that thing. And I don't know when the Philly taproom actually officially opened. I know you got a handful of years there though.
It was the following year, so it was October 2021. It's when the Phillies were in the World Series that year.
Oh gosh. Well, that tracks for a project. It's just like anytime you do anything like that, you start a brewery, you're going to see delays. Nothing's going to go on as planned or on schedule. And especially during COVID, it was building materials went out the roof. Everything kind of got flipped on its head. So everyone was just figuring it out. But yeah, I ultimately left Victory then.
Is that when you didn't start a Workhorse at that point?
No. So I worked. Victory was acquired by private equity group Artisanal Brewing Ventures, who owned Southern Tier. They bought Victory second in 2016, and then they bought Sixpoint in 19 or 18. I remember we brewed a lot of Sixpoints. I remember working hard on scaling the recipes and doing all that. And then before I left, they bought Bold Rock, and I think that was their last acquisition they made. But long story short, I worked at Victory for 4 years pre-acquisition and 4 years post. And I kind of saw both sides of it. And, the first 2 years were still kind of like the honeymoon period after the acquisition. It was just everything's, Victory's Victory and Sixpoint and Southern Tier, and everyone does their own thing. And then it started to kind of twist a little bit, and it became a little bit more driven by, not wrongly. It used to be the brewers decided everything. It was what do you guys want to brew? It's brewers who would come to the table and say, this is what we want to make. These are the seasonals or something. And sales would chirp in as well. And then it kind of pivoted a little bit where I think it became more rounded in the sense that marketing had more say in the conversation. And then it became more and more marketing. And some of the projects that I got to work on, because I did a lot of the R&D projects at Victory as well back then, it would go from experimenting with a new hop to how can you make Golden Monkey into 18 more Golden Monkeys. Mm-hmm. And that's fine. There's obviously money to be made there. There's good business in growing a singular brand. I think you see it with New Belgium. They're really successful with all the Voodoo Rangers. How many Rangers are out there? I remember when that beer was just called Voodoo IPA or Ranger. That was called Ranger IPA. I remember touring New Belgium in 2011 in Fort Collins, and that was called Ranger IPA. It was a great IPA. And all of a sudden they killed it, and they came out with it as Voodoo Ranger, and it was this goofy skeleton, and I was like, what's this weird brand? And now look at it, it's huge.
Yeah.
It's bigger than New Belgium.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Because Fat Tire used to be bigger than New Belgium, and now look at Fat Tire. Nobody even cares.
Yeah.
It's just so right, wrong, or indifferent, Victory started going in the direction of maybe more marketing driven, and turning out. I mean, I worked. Sour Monkey became a year-round beer. It was a one-off project finished with Brettanomyces and really artisanal in these 750 ml bottles. And then it became more of a production brand. We figured out how to optimize it into a production beer, and that was really fun and really challenging. And then
as Sour Monkey grew, I guess you watched the growth. How did that start? Just like if you're selling a lot of taproom, you're selling a lot in distro specifically, and you're like, okay, let's push it.
That's a really good question. So it's a lot of beer ideas that grow into something bigger are like something that salespeople call it like it's hot, which is like kind of a bullshit term because it doesn't mean anything. They just think it's sold really fast. But if a lot of times they'll come back and be like, oh, this is so hot, like Sip Trip is really hot for us or something. So then marketing and the brewers and the sales team kind of come back and they go, okay, well, can we make that, like, what if we do this as like, instead of a one-off release, we do it as like a seasonal, we do it as like the summer beer or whatever, or it goes into a full-year core beer, as a lot of breweries refer to them. And Sour Monkey went from a one-off 750 ml, expensive, hard to make, hard to package, all this stuff. And then they said, we want to do this year round. And we, the brewers, had to kind of figure out, okay, how do we make this a production beer? Because it ties up the work kettle for 24 to 48 hours or longer sometimes. And it was finished with Brettanomyces, which Brettanomyces in your bright tanks, this is before Victory had any pasteurization. Brettanomyces in your bright tanks could take down an entire batch, no problem. So you had to do a full CIP after. And there was a lot of process that we had to think about and kind of work through to make it a full-time beer. But it was very much introduced, probably, I would say, from a sales and marketing perspective, as far as growing Monkey as a brand.
Yeah.
And,
It's a unique brand because it's like a sour beer that's made with Brettanomyces. So it's like this very crafty craft beer. I mean, it's like a brewer's beer.
Absolutely.
But then when it hits the market, now it's like sold to college kids and in like bottle shops. It's like, it was like the Voodoo Ranger before Voodoo Ranger. It was like everybody just can drink. It's like a very drinkable beer.
Yeah, that was one of my like go-to beers in college.
Yeah.
And I feel like most people probably have the same experience, at least from around here. Yeah.
And sours carved out much more. Instead of being like a niche thing, more people were exposed to sours, I think, from say 2014 to 2018 to 2020. And they learned, oh, like sour and beer, like this is really tasty. This is really drinkable. Like there's a refreshing aspect to sours. That's really cool. So Sour Monkey naturally became like this huge juggernaut in the Victory portfolio. And I worked on a Merry Monkey before I left. I don't know if that kind of came and went, but like Berry Monkey, Witty Monkey, all those things are kind of past my time. But they've turned the monkey they made a monkey family. Like they have, hitched their wagon to that horse, and they're going to run that horse. And that's great. I hope it works out. And
I remember the first time I was at Victory, we were getting into the hazy IPA and we did Mighty Things.
Yes.
And then Mighty Things then transformed into Cloudwalker. Or maybe not that, but it was like Mighty Things was like the first step into like how does Victory make like a juicy IPA.
And Liberty Bell Ringer. That was another one.
Yeah.
That was kind of like in that juicy IPA vein. But yes, to get back to a little bit of my timeline. So, working there, I started seeing the brewery going in this direction. And it was also getting really stressful because of COVID. It was like all this, work. And I finally decided to depart. I went to One Village Coffee, which is a small coffee roaster. I was always into coffee. They were located in Sourton, PA. And I took a, operations manager role there, huge pay cut, but like much more reasonable work-life balance. No shifts, no managing a 24/7 team where like you're getting calls in the middle of the night, like this is broken, that's broken. And got to do coffee for about a year and a half. Learned a lot about it. It's super fun. It has similarities, craft coffee to craft beer, but ultimately it's very different. You roast a bean. That process is anywhere from like 11 to 13 minutes. And then you hand the bean to the customer and you say, okay, now you make the product. Like when you think about coffee, like I'm doing half of it and then I'm handing it to you and saying, okay, now you roast it and make your own flipping cup of coffee. Like it doesn't, like when I hand you a can of beer, it's ready to drink.
Yeah.
We've done all the work. We got the oxygen out of it. We've increased the carb. We've sterilized it. We put a pretty label on it. We hand it to you. You crack it and drink it. Awesome. Coffee, like you do all this work roasting and you hand it to someone and they could very easily fuck it all up for all purposes. And it's different. It's very fun. It's a very fast process. Like when you think about roasting in 11 to minutes, like you're really like creating a batch, like, boom, bang. Like nothing in brewing is that fast. Like a brew day is anywhere from 6 to 8 hours. Fermentation is several days, and then conditioning, and then clarification and packaging. You're talking about like a 2-week process to get from grain to glass. And coffees, you do several batches in a day to make these roasted beans. Cold brew is a little bit different. We used a different partner to produce cold brew for us at One Village. Backyard Beans helped us out. A company in Jersey called Beacon. There were a few that we used, and cold brew's neat in its own way. We would roast and grind it, send it to them. They would do the cold brew process and can it. And
what are the tough parts like making coffee? I know for beer, it's like keeping everything sterile and washing out. Is like for coffee, is there like things that you're trying to hit?
It's not as bad as beer. Yes, there are things you're trying to hit. You're trying to massage this green bean, the raw coffee, if you will, through the roasting process. And you can't just like turn on the oven to 400 and let it roast for like for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
You kind of bring it up slowly. You have to allow it to kind of develop, and then after it hits a certain point, you want to bring it out of the roaster and cool it very quickly so it doesn't continue to develop and roast. And that part's really neat. I get aspects of like single origin coffee roasters, and like there's a lot of things about coffee that I really appreciate now that I've worked at a roaster. But then 2022, our former VP of sales at Victory went to Workhorse in early 2022.
Steve German,
he called me up for... he knows my language. He said, "We have a smoke lager I want you to try. Come over to my house." So I went over there, and he said, "I think Nate could use some help in the brewery if you're interested." And Nate and I interviewed over a few beers at East Branch Brewing in Downingtown, and
other Victory people.
Yeah, more Victory folks. And then he kind of pitched the role to me to come to Workhorse and be their head of brewing ops. And
Nate used to be at Victory also, right?
Yeah. So to continue the Victory spider web. Nate Olwine worked at Victory. I might butcher these dates a little bit, but 2008 to 2011 after graduating from. Did he go to UC? Yeah, he was at UC Davis, Victory, and then he went to Devil's Backbone in Virginia, which at that point was really small, and he helped grow Devil's Backbone to this really big size. And then
they got acquired, right?
They got acquired by Anheuser-Busch.
Oh wow,
not bad.
Yeah, that was one of like the first acquisitions of AB after like. Who are the folks? Legion. Like then they were like DB and the folks out of Asheville, Wicked Weed, and a handful of others, 10 Barrel. I think Nate would, after the acquisition, Nate, thought let me look into getting a brewery of my own, and he met with Dan, or he connected with Dan Hirschberg, and in 2018 they started Workhorse Brewing, and started with a core portfolio of a West Coast, a New England, an American Pilsner, and a Vienna Lager. And of those brands, I brought our West Coast today, but also our New England is still part of our core. Our Golden Lager is now part of our core brand. Those are kind of our big three. And then we're kind of introducing some other ones and kind of playing with some, not different styles necessarily, but
this beer is great. I don't think Workhorse is like a hazy IPA place, but this beer is awesome.
We get no credit for our hazy IPAs, and I like more credit for our IPAs. I'd like to go toe to toe with some folks on our West Coast and our New England. I think if I gave you guys a triangle tasting of our New England and some of the top hazy boys out there right now, I think you'd be hard pressed to say that this one from hypey, other half or whatever is like just as good as this one next to it. And I should have brought a bunch. We could have done triangles and really duked it out with them. But no, so Nate started Workhorse in 2018. Fast forward to 2022, I come on as their head of brewing ops. And it's myself, Nate, and a very small brewing team. And, we've kind of changed some of our core portfolio and done some work on the innovation side for R&D beers like the Speckled Stream that we're trying and new partnerships. Like Speckled Stream is partnered with Orvis. That's really cool. That's something I'd never expect to partner with a clothing and fishing gear manufacturer, but
Yeah, you were saying like this is literally, if you look at the can in the camera, it's like supposed to be a trout. Like,
Yes.
like it's pretty sick. If you,
it's
you could
rainbow
see it.
trout label. Like,
Yeah.
you know, I think one thing about beer, the last couple years, it matters so much more than like what the beer tastes and smells like.
100%.
So you really have to be getting someone's attention on the shelf, and also what other avenues can you open up? Like working with Orvis, we are like, you go to shop at Orvis, and a lot of times they're doing samplings there and stuff, and they're sampling out our beer. Mm-hmm. You know, another thing I wanted to talk about was we just partnered with Villanova,
Oh, really?
and we're doing a lager for them.
The Pope Pilsner.
It's called V's Up Lager. I guess they're big on the V thing, you know.
My little cousin just got in. She's going to start next year.
Great.
So I'm going to.
Start them young. But no, the V's Up Lager is a new, you know, it's a Munich Helles, very easy drinking, 5%, you know,
Yeah.
golden lager. But it's going to have that Villanova branding.
Yeah.
And we're about 5 miles from Villanova as far as like the crow flies, you know, between Workhorse and that university. And there's a ton of alumni between Workhorse and Villanova.
Sure.
That, you know, if we can get those folks, you know, trying our beer, coming to our tap room or being at the grocery store, the beer distributor, and saying, oh, yeah, they did that V's Up Lager, I want to try,
Of course.
you know, their Philly Light or their Sip Trip or whatever. I think we as brewers have to start. We're past the days of just, I make an IPA, I make a lager, and I'm special because I care a lot about quality. Everybody's about is, oh, we pay the utmost attention to quality and craftsmanship and detail. Who doesn't? Get the fuck out of here. Like, those days are numbered. I'm so sick of like these new breweries, like this is all I see. And it's just like, first of all, what do you know about that? Like, you have no experience. But second of all, like, everyone's saying the same thing. Like those notes are going to kind of play themselves out. And that's what's kind of interesting, I think, about craft beer. Like, we're at this huge crux where I think it's going to start to tip the other way, where a lot of these folks that are opening and they're just kind of saying, they're banging the same drum and playing the same chords and they're saying the same thing. I think those things are going to start to like whittle out in the sense of the population. And they're just going to go, well, why should I drink, you know, brewery from X? Like, okay, they have a hazy, they have a lager. Like, we could all brew good lagers these days. Like, we're all buying the same materials. The literature is available, the education's available, that we could tap into the same resources and kind of produce similar beers. So I think grabbing some of these things as far as marketing and branding is going to become more and more critical. I mean, hell, I never thought I'd do, you know, a 10% 19.2, but you know, there's a consumer for that. And
Well, it just shows that your brand is like in touch with what's happening. So you're
100%.
paying attention.
yeah, the person that wants to drink that, like, great. Like, I mean, try that thing. Like, it's incredibly drinkable. I mean, and that's the point of a lot of these. You know, you want to have something like that. The person that drinks that beer wants to have something that tastes good. I'm just going to give them a buzz, but you're not going to taste like sipping on, you know, like crappy booze or something like that. They don't want it to be all boozy, and that's what I thought. I always thought Victory did a good job with the monkeys and the sour monkeys.
Yeah.
They'd be these big beers, but you couldn't really tell. Like, you could tell later, but you couldn't tell when you were sipping that. But like, and we worked really hard on the fermentation profile of that to kind of really dial in, create the alcohol through fermentation, but not create like this big like sniffing and tasting boozy beer, and have it be really juicy.
People, the 19.2s, you're not pouring that into a can. It's like,
The 19.2 drinker is cracking that and
yeah.
knocking it back
In a paper
in a
bag.
few minutes. Yeah. Like, they're not sipping that in a bowl, you know, a tulip glass or something along.
Yeah.
I mean, they can go for it. But yeah, you know, working on Philly Light, another, just trying to see that light beer, that higher kind of craft lager. I remember the guy from Beer Mill, Dave.
Yeah.
Yeah, when he came on, he was kind of interested in that segment for his store. And I thought that was really interesting to hear that, knowing that we're working on this project. You know, I think a lot of brewers, New Trail, there's some other folks that are kind of trying to hit this vein of like, maybe not retro or throwback, but like a little bit of that, but like making something that's like just, I mean, this is 4%. You suck when it's so easy drinking. So
Yeah, Ken Wood
it's
fits in
tough.
that category
It's
too,
tough.
that
Like,
type.
you know, you can't compete with like Bud Light. But if people want to support local,
Yes.
here's a beer that's like Bud Light, but you're supporting local.
yes.
Yeah.
And I think that I don't know if we're going to convert the Bud Light, Miller Lite drinker at this point. Like,
I think that's an older
that's what
crowd,
they're doing.
but the younger crowd is very willing to change.
Yeah.
Very willing.
That's good to hear.
And I mean, like, no, that's why, like, Garage, I don't know how Garage actually sells, but their marketing.
I'm gonna taste one of the 10%. I'm not gonna drink that whole thing, but I want to taste it.
But Garage, it
Bracket.
appeals to the younger crowd for sure.
Yeah.
You see Garage Lime everywhere.
Do you think that's because of Kelsey?
I think it's a little bit, but I think
100%.
it fits that segment still. Like, there's an appetite for a lighter, like, more craft-like type lighter lager.
Steve McMillan, who we talked about before, he used to brew garage beer.
Oh, really?
Oh, really?
And where is it? Brewdog. Yeah. It's
Interesting.
like a contract brand.
But yeah, I don't know. I think that, and like similar with the Philly Light, it could fit in like a similar position with the Kenwoods and with
Yeah, Kenwood's one of those that I was trying to name. Yes.
yeah, and like New Trails Crisp Lime as well. Like,
Oh, we have to describe what we're drinking for the listener.
I was thinking about that. Well, so
We forget sometimes that like most people just listen to this, so we're drinking it, and then like I'll be listening, I'm like, all right, that's 8 seconds of silence of me just sitting there as I'm enjoying this beer. This beer, I mean, like you said, this is the 10% one. It does not taste like 10% at all. It's
No.
fruity. It's bright. I mean, you can drink that
That
whole
has to
thing.
describe the speckled stream because our speckled stream is gone.
But the Speckle Stream is really, really good. Can you talk about this beer? Like, do you know what hops are in it?
Yes, it's heavy on Cryo Pop, which is a blend of hops that YCH puts together, and then Cryo. Think about like taking the hop pellet and extracting all the lupulin glands, all the good stuff, basically, like all the huge aroma and flavor drivers of a hop, and compacting that and making a super pellet. That is what a cryo hop is
like
in a nutshell.
the whole cone hops they were saying, that's like 100% vegetal matter, and then like you're removing more and more vegetal matter, and cryo is like the supercharged version of that.
and so typically I'm honestly not a fan of hazy IPAs.
Okay.
But this it doesn't hit as hard. I don't know if that's like just part of like this brew specifically, but
Do you like cryo? I mean, this beer is great. You guys been using cryo pop?
I like Cryo Pop blend the best. We've used like Cryo Cryo is like more of a process. So you can have Cryo Centennial or Cryo Mosaic or Simcoe, whatever.
Okay.
But the pop blend I find is my favorite. I've worked with half a dozen or almost a dozen cryo varieties at this point, but the pop blend is like easily my favorite.
The pop is cool because it's like a blend. It's like
And I think
they designed
change
it. Oh, really?
I think they change it from year to year, like based on like how the
that's
hops
cool.
are doing. So that part's pretty nice because you can kind of always have the cream of the
Yeah.
crop, the cream of the pop. But yeah, the sip trip, that one is largely driven from a fermentation profile to create that big body or that high ABV, I should say. But a lot of the aromatics and the flavor is driven by the fermentation profile as well.
Like, where would this be? Like, do you sell this beer specifically to certain locations? Just like I'm looking at the branding, I'm like, it seems like a concert venue type
That's a
beer.
really good question, and it's a good. Ideally, that's a good avenue. I don't know. Some other folks have talked about maybe getting into some stadiums, and stadiums is a great play, but it's a very much a pay for play.
Yeah, we've
to
learned
sell-
that crazy
Yeah,
numbers
to
and
sell beer at Citizens Bank. Last I heard was like $60,000 to be allowed to sell your beer there.
it's crazy.
You got to sell $60,000 worth of beer, and then just to make your money back. So it's more-
$60,000 worth of profit. It's like there's so much
It's
beer.
more of the exposure.
It's a marketing play.
Yes, it's more of a marketing play right off. There's some smaller breweries in there, and I know what they produce, and it's probably they see it as a marketing expense. They see it as a little bit of a loss. But folks are traveling all over to see the Phillies play, and they get to try brewery X's stuff because it says something about the Phillies on it. That's cool, and maybe that generates sales later. I can't say that for sure, but that's got to be the thought process.
What I think sometimes is like, my brand, like what I'm trying to sell is like the exclusivity of it. But I think sometimes like I don't realize that getting a sale is marketing in itself. So like people buying the beer in the stadium is then they see the brand as like, oh, this small brand. I didn't realize that they were this big, this good. It's like,
Yeah.
it's like kind of, I don't know, showing some people like that. You're punching above your weight class, I guess.
Sure. But ideally, well, a lot of concert venues aren't really carrying 19.2s.
Yeah, 19.2s is an interesting one.
Yeah.
I feel like we
You know what are comedy stores? And it's like, why do I need this? Like the 2-drink minimum, but like I don't need. They'll have like 2 like golden monkeys and then like something else. But like I don't need to drink like 2 9.5% beers.
We are in the Fillmore,
Okay.
our golden lager. But Fillmore, I've noticed, is big on like not high ABV beers. The largest beer they have is like a 6% IPA from maybe Victory or something. But like the last few times I've been to the Fillmore, it's always like lower things. But last one was at Union Transfer a few months ago. I feel like they had all big cans, or a lot of folks were drinking big cans, but maybe they weren't like high ABV big cans. I think every venue is a little very selective about what they're bringing in. Maybe they want folks to drink 19.2 and charge $20 for it, but they don't want to get absolutely obliterated. So it's a 5% Allagash White or something. I'm pulling that out of my butt, but
No, but that makes sense as well.
yeah. So who's drinking this and where are they picking it up? Probably at their local store. Maybe they're riding their bike there. I don't know. But that's okay. Those people need beer too. So a lot of folks, I think, drinking, those are literally a single serve play. And it's been an interesting segment to get into, and it's been kind of a growing segment across craft beer. And I think more folks are going to try to enter it. Our canning line can do 19.2s. We deliberately had printed cans made up for the 19.2s because of like the billboard effect of that can. Like it needs to advertise your beer. If you have a wrapped label, kind of looking goofy on there, it might not look as nice. And those folks are shopping quick. I mean, you're talking about people that are probably seeing a whole cooler full of beer. Which ones are $3.29? Which ones are $4.99? Okay, I'll buy the $3.29 one. Which one looks cool? Well, that one's got tie-dye on it. Brad, I'll pick that one up. Like they're quick. They're not reading what's in it. They want something that's got the punchy effect, tastes good, easy drinking.
Do you guys still sell, the 10-ounce cans? What are the little ones?
Those 8-ounce cans.
8-ounce cans.
8-ounce cans.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So
When
I listened to the pod enough to know that you like flights and you don't like flights.
Yes.
I think that's an interesting sell. I still think at some
Let
point
me
that
pitch
could
you
be.
on something, Evan. Flights to go. A 6-pack of 8-ounce cans of all different styles. So you buy a flight and you take it home and you could have this flight to go.
I mean, yes, that I'm
We threw a
buying.
lot away.
Really. I think part of it, and it makes sense. I think maybe in the future that could work. But I mean, your primary demographic of who's buying beer at breweries at this point, it's not the younger crowd.
8 ounces of beer is just not enough beer. It's like
It's not for who's buying currently. But I'm not thinking about that. I'm thinking of like a Gen Z.
we're attacking Gen Zs. It's like maybe give them slightly smaller. That's how we break them in.
But you can spend they'll spend the same amount of money on it too, because I'm sure that's not cheap to can and everything. It's probably crazy.
Were you there when they were packed? I mean,
No, that was before my time at Workhorse. We did a variety pack of sours where we had two. It was a 6-pack. It was a margarita, a prickly pear margarita, which we're actually just about to release again. It's great beer.
prickly pear margarita sounds really good.
Yeah, it's awesome. Our margarita and our prickly pear margarita, and even our Finn, which was they were all soured gozas, or fruited gozas. But we did
What's the golf one that you guys have?
Par Punch.
I love that beer.
Yeah, so that is. I'll get to that one. So the sour variety pack, we did that my first year. That was a 6-pack of 222 cans. It was good, and I think it did all right. It didn't do great. But a lot of the labor behind these things, like these little projects, like no one has equipment to automate those things. So when you think about a variety, like when we do our variety packs, I didn't bring our variety pack, our IPA variety pack, but it's 3 cans of 4 different beers. But we're running all those beers, like say 200 cases of each, loose into trays. And then I'm getting a bunch of folks to help out from the tap room and the brewery, and we're all just sitting there and hand packing all these 12 packs.
I remember the first time when I was at Flying Dog, the first week, we were like, all right, it's time to do mixed packs.
Yeah.
It's like, what do you mean? I walk back, it's like, oh, this is how this works? Like,
Yeah.
You actually just
There's
make
not a
this?
machine that packs them. I mean, even at Victory, larger places, like a lot of folks are taking these things and just packing them all themselves. So why these are like great little ideas, and like, it's always worth it if it's enough sales. Like anything's worth it. I will do anything.
Yeah.
Like, I'll lay on a bed of hot coals and pack beer. Like if we're going to sell 10,000 barrels of it. But like the fact of the matter is, well, like when you're doing all this work and you're like, great, I sold 200 cases of beer total. It's like, it wasn't worth it. So the variety packs or the flights to go, or even the sour margarita pack, that kind of didn't pan out. Par Punch was a project we worked on about 2 years ago. It did great its first year, but a lot of beer releases have a tendency. The beer industry is a little bit of like, what have you done for me now? Mm-hmm. So when they see something in year 2, they go, well, I had that last year. I don't really care anymore.
Yeah.
And I think ourselves and a lot of other breweries kind of see this and have to fight with it. And, that's what kind of makes Richie's model a little unique in the sense of like every beer is different, right? Like he's not going to say, well, yeah, like it's not buy Jump School again. It's buy, well, this is my new one, right?
Yeah.
And that has its own challenges too, because you kind of have to sell each one, right? Like if they start backing up, then it's like, well, why should I buy 6 when I see 2 on the shelf still, or something like that? We're all trying to solve this Rubik's Cube that's constantly changing as far as craft beer or just big beer in general. And it's really fun, but it's also extremely challenging. The glory days of just like, I started a brewery.
Yep.
I care about quality and, I'm constantly tweaking my recipes to be the best ever. Like those days I firmly believe those days are numbered. And I do think we're going to see some closures in the next, this year and the next year and the next year. And
it shocks me. There's still some brews that come out and they're just making not great beer. And it's like,
sure.
Like you said, like you can't talk like that anymore. Well, you can't talk like that because everyone's making great beer. Yeah. Most people are, but there's still some people opening up and just like, you're not even at this point yet. Like forget about the marketing.
Yeah, I think it depends locationally too. Like if you're opening up a tap room in the suburbs that doesn't have a space, that's one thing. If you want to actually go to the place, but
can we talk about that Workhorse tap room?
Sure.
It's a great tap room.
Yeah.
So cool.
They just did an event there. The
Mario Kart?
Yeah.
Went pretty well. We stayed over an hour late. So
Nice.
it was
I mean, that's
I was thinking about
because it was a good thing.
I was thinking about like bringing my kids to that because they like Mario Kart, but my kids are the kids that play. Well, got a 9-year-old, a 7-year-old, a 5-year-old, and an almost 2-year-old.
Okay.
And so the top 3 might play, but like I was like,
They would get
obliterated.
They would get smoked.
by grown adults that won't care.
These people are so good.
They'll cook your kids and they'll smile.
Yes, and I thought that's not a good avenue.
So I'm gonna
Expose them to competitive gaming.
I'm gonna expose Liam a little bit. So Liam, our producer, he's on next episode. He was training for the event at the Boozy Mutt. He's a very good video game player, and he came and just got like, wiped with these kids. Like they're these. I don't understand. I've never been a good big video game person. They're so talented. I don't understand it.
Well, it's all
Yeah, it was unbelievable. Like he came in like third, fourth place in like the opening round of it. We were like, William's gonna win this thing. He's really good.
It's all some kids do, and then you have players that are like. One of the things that Sam told me when we were doing it at the Boozy Mud, he's like, I saw this kid come in with an apple and a backpack. I'm like, well, that guy means business, clearly. Most of the others aren't that, but when you see that kid in any other situation, you wouldn't be shaking in your boots, but you're looking at that, you're like, going to be competition.
So I'm glad I didn't bring my kids to that event, but I'm glad you guys had the event at Workhorse at Tap Room. That's I think the other aspect of, Evan, you were talking about, location has a lot to do with how successful brewery is right now. The other thing that I think is behind us is the days of, I opened a brewery in a commercial business park, and I make a hazy IPA back here, but you got to we're only open on weekends, and it's all this goofy, no one wants to be in that setting anymore. So I do think you have to be either in an attractive location from how the building looks, or inside the tap room, or I think the customer service aspect is huge. A lot of folks
And who's it, Justin, your GM?
Justin,
Yeah, he's really good.
yes.
So it's you can't you actually have to operate as a good restaurant.
Yes.
You have to be front facing, a hospitality as well. Or it used to be just the same bullshit. You walk into the tap room, it was just oh, it's fine if it's bad service. It's it's a brewery. Now you have to be top of the line.
We got a pinball machine. It just those things I think could still last and are still cool to a certain aspect. But I do think, I think food is important.
Yep.
I think kind of the other thing that is kind of behind us is the brewery without food. The food truck aspect to me. So I have a family. I have a family of 4, or I have 4 kids. We're a family of 6. Food is critical, right? I still like to go places, go to breweries, and a lot of folks, even without families, when they go, they need to eat eventually. And I personally feel like the food truck aspect has like kind of weared its like charm off a little bit of like, oh, it's a brewery, they have a food truck. Well, what's the food truck? I don't know. Did they show up? Maybe not. Like, there's a lot of curveballs to that. Consistency,
So-
waiting outside.
$25 avocado burrito.
Sure. There, yeah, there's that too. That I think a lot of folks need to kind of have their own. So we work with Pete and Gus, who have a few locations in Philadelphia, but we have like a standing, they run our food operation. We have a food trailer, but they run that entire operation. So like you come there and get their cheesesteak. It's freaking awesome. Like you can get it. Yeah.
Food is great there.
You can get it a few other spots, but they're handling that operation. They're pros. They know what they're doing. We don't. Let them run that. Let us do our thing as far as running the tap room and the production brewery, and that's it. But I do think that's another aspect of like craft beer that's kind of changing in terms of location. I think it's location itself, how it looks like inside and outside, and also, what's the food situation? Why are folks going to stay? Are there cool events? We try to really populate the event calendar pretty heavily to give folks a reason to come out. I mean, we're in King of Prussia, which is a pretty populous place, but we're a little off the beaten path in King of Prussia. We're kind of on the border of Bridgeport. We're close to the mall, but not like super close and convenient.
Close to Kunda Beverage.
Very close to Kunda Bev, yeah. I feel like it took me so long to get there because it was one of those places I'd always drive by on 276.
It's like too close. And then
Yeah, and you're like, how do I get to that actually?
Yeah.
That depot. And then like when I worked at Workhorse, I was like, oh, it's like right next to Workhorse.
Yeah.
That was pretty rad.
What's the, I know, do you guys make your own root beer?
We do make our own root beer. That's the one non-beer product we make. We did make our own seltzer for a hot second, but it just didn't pull through very well. So it was one of those projects that we kind of just said, let's, if someone wants a seltzer, we started carrying, I think, statesides. We have the PA brewing license allows you to have all like the PA distilled spirits. You have wines, which is very flexible and awesome. We don't have any other seltzers though, like traditional seltzers, I guess. We just have the vodka seltzer. And then we carry some ciders from some other folks that kind of serve that niche. But we do make our own root beer, which is cool. We don't package it, but it is draft.
How is that?
good.
I never got to make any sodas of Victory, but I heard that it was a huge pain.
It's a pain, but like it's one of those things you make like a couple times a year.
So it's like kind of unique.
Yeah, we're not pumping out root beer like every other week. Like, I mean, no one's drinking that much root beer. Like,
Yeah.
a kid gets a glass of root beer, they're good. No one's like taking home a growler of root beer.
Yeah, no 6 packs of root beer.
Yeah, like Victory used to bottle of root beer back when I started.
Really?
Yes.
In beer bottles?
Yes.
Wow.
And we had different filler tubes just for root beer, and like you change out all the rubber parts just for root
Well, I remember the rubber parts in the office because you smell them.
Yeah, they reek of root beer. It's a potent flavor. So we really don't try to cross that stream. So root beer is probably the one non-beer product, and then we got into craft or contract brewing was kind of the biggest thing that we've done outside of Workhorse beers over the past year and a half, and we produce for I think it's about like 5 folks around the area, Richie being one of them, which is really cool and it has been super fun and rewarding. From my perspective, making beer for ourselves or someone else is it's the same process. Just have someone else's logo at the end of it. I have to work with them kind of on the recipe and scaling it up or pricing it out or whatever. But in the end, it's still making beer. As long as we're making beer, I'm happy. And
I've been like very open about it. Like, where I did my research. I didn't just like choose Workhorse because I knew you, but it was, Workhorse was clearly the best option in my opinion.
What other contract brewers were you vetting? And why?
Well, I won't name them, but it's we talk about some new news, I guess. Bald Birds, Yards.
Oh yeah.
New
That's big
Trail
news.
just created a
Trail. It was
90
Two Roads.
Two Roads.
Roads.
Yeah.
Created a
B3.
B3. So they didn't merge, but they created like a collective.
Yes. Contract collective.
Contract collective.
And what does that mean? I don't really know. It's very new news. It was just
I think they were all contract brewing, and now they get to like kind of probably bulk buy cans and stuff.
cans, malt, maybe a little bit of hops. It makes sense. And maybe, from what I understand, I think some of them have their own specialties. One of those partners can do NA beers. That's something that I remember talking to some folks from a contract perspective. They're like, can you do non-alcoholic beers? It's like, well, no, we can't. We don't have that equipment. Mm-hmm. And they're like, well, then I'm not interested. That's an interesting segment because that has been, everyone's getting into, I get notifications of my local.
There's gonna be Athletic, Best Day, and like 2 others that survive in like 3 years. Like everyone else just going to
many
crap
people,
out.
though. There's so many people in that space right now. I can't, when I get notifications of my local beer distributor in Downingtown, sometimes it'll be like 8 or 12 NA beers in a row.
Wow.
Who's drinking all these things? I mean, everyone wants to get in the space, and yeah, I think
Everyone's saying like
folks are
people are
gonna-
drinking less alcohol. I don't know if you saw the pictures from Sips last night.
No.
Gen Z is coming back drinking in a hurry. It's like downtown, like everyone's drinking again.
Good.
It's good, but it's like it's coming back.
I need a drink. Right?
Yeah, everyone's tired of being sober.
Good. We've had enough. I'm the millennial generation. I feel like we're still doing our part. The boomer, we're losing folks. We're losing our beer drinkers. They're getting older. They're giving up, or they're going to spirits or so. Oh God, come on, folks, come back.
I've been doing my part, talking shit, but
No, it's good. Do you think the craft beers cheat? What do you think is going to happen in the next couple of years?
well, if you just like take a step back, it's like I said, like everything's cyclical. Like we're kind of moving back into, I guess, like all of society is like kind of moving back into like kind of bro culture where like everything is like even like light beer like that, and things are coming back to like Smirnoff Ice type beers type drinks with like the surf sides.
Yeah.
And I think we're just in this thing where like people are getting fucked up. Also, it's like the thing that people don't talk about is like everyone wants to talk about. It's not Surfside that's like people aren't drinking. It's like the weed. People are smoking a lot of weed.
Yep.
But it's online gambling and sports gambling is just taking everybody's money. And it's like everyone likes sports and sports gambling, so they're not talking about it. Nobody has any money because everyone's losing all their money gambling. You can just play blackjack on your phone for no reason. That and Tinder are like just crushing drinking. But I think people are just tired of it losing their money.
How is Tinder crushing drink?
Because people aren't going to bars anymore. You can just get laid by sitting on your couch. And it's like, it ruins, like, it used to be like when we were in college, you would have to go to the bar to like meet people.
Yeah.
Now you can just sit on your phone and just go fishing. And it's like, you don't need to do it.
Fishing for partners.
Fishing for
Not
your,
literal fishing.
what? No.
Not fishing.
You're sitting on your couch drinking a speckled
Drinking an
stream.
And you're fishing on Tinder.
Yes, exactly. But it's people think that's like weed or like distilled spirits that are like killing it. But it's mostly it's like sports gambling and like online dating are what's killing drinking
Interesting.
culture.
I will also put in there most of Gen Z specifically is broke. Like,
Well, they didn't
economy is
have
not
money anyway. But on top
Yeah.
of that,
And then
I
they're
drive
using
people
it.
around all day that have no money.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
they don't have enough money to buy a car. But every single person talks about sports gambling.
Yeah.
Everybody's sports gambling. Everyone's wasting all their money. The casinos always win. There's nobody that wins doing this thing. It's like 1% of the population that's like, they could be like day traders and make that money.
Yeah.
Instead of doing that, they're just like, betting on like, random.
You got a 10-way parlay that's going to make
Exactly.
hundreds of dollars.
And it's like, people aren't talking about that, how like that is like, it's entertaining doing that, watching sports instead of drinking. It's like they're trying to like, and it's me too, like kind of like infighting, blaming like teas or weed or these other things of like how to like change your mind. But it's a lot of it is sports gambling, just taking people's disposable income. I'm saying that as somebody that watches sports nonstop, and I do like sports gambling also.
I know a
But
lot
it's
of
like
people
it's just
that are
not in
doing the same
conversation.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
yeah.
So going back to beer, before we wrap up, you said when you started at Victory, you were starting on the packaging line.
Yes.
Do you think I don't have really I've worked a couple packaging shifts, but do you think having packaging experience, I feel like that's a huge game changer as far as like being in the position that you're in as like a brewery manager.
It's one of the things that I've always kind of enjoyed. Like there's so studying industrial engineering, which anyone knows what that's about. Like a lot of it is efficiency, and it's
What is industrial engineering?
it's efficiency engineering. It's looking at, I mean, really high level. It's looking at warehouse or a production area, or it can be a lot of things. But think about it like lean manufacturing, like looking at something and say, how do I make this better, faster, stronger? How do I take two people's jobs and make them into one?
Okay.
I mean, that's what a lot of it is. There's a lot of other segments of it, and I'm generalizing hugely, and I don't beat me up too much. But a lot of it, like it kind of ties into like running a brewery. Like it kind of worked itself out. Like it was one of those things where I took a job as like a truck driver, but it like worked out where I was like using
You
my
actually
IE
work
degree.
with your degree.
Yeah, and like not intentionally, but like I just kind of got there like
Yeah.
serendipitously, where I was just like, okay, like now I'm using my IE degree very practically in terms of running, Victory or Workhorse or whatever. But something that I love about canning or bottling or kegging or anything in particular, like you can look at it very much from an efficiency perspective and say this piece of machine is designed to do 140 kegs an hour, like at Victory, or a kegger could do 140 half barrels an hour, which is awesome. It's like, okay. And when I would work that, I would think, okay, I need to do this. Like, I need to hit that benchmark or else I'm not doing my job well. And I like to try to instill that mentality in folks as far as like,
So you game.
yeah, like think of it as a game. Think of it as like, like I'm not an athlete, but like I like to run or to do something and like physically challenge myself. Like, so think about it as a physical challenge or a mental challenge. Like, how do I manage, and that's the other thing about that. I think production brewing is it's not just a physical challenge, it's a mental challenge, because you have to be able to have anywhere from like 3 to 5 different tasks in your head and know where they are at that point in the process to know how to manage that and optimize your time. Like, I could be kegging beer and know I have 2.5 minutes between this cycle when I'll have to be back. What can I get done in 2.5 minutes? Mm-hmm. And if you think like that as a production brewer, you're going to do pretty well because you're going to use the most of your time and get a ton of shit done and everyone's going to be really happy with you. But like, it's the folks that are like, I'm doing this and I can't do anything else because I don't want to. Like, that to me, like, isn't the best setting for a production brewer. There's other brewing aspects I think you could work really well in. I worked in a pub. Like, it's a much slower pace. Like, you're doing one thing. It's a totally different animal. But yeah, I think from a production standpoint and like IE degree, like I think those things kind of go a little hand in hand, and it's worked its way out nicely as far as like studying that and falling into this industry. And at this point, I'm in my late 30s. I've invested about 15 years into craft beer. Like I don't think I'm gonna just find something new. I'm not gonna go back to Johnson & Johnson and be like, hey, you guys remember me? I co-opted on the Listerine line. Like, I did a pretty good job with that spreadsheet. Like, I mean, I'm still pretty good with Excel, but like, I'm probably gonna get laughed by everyone that's way younger than me at this point. So, my Visio and all these other little tools that I had back in the day that helped me kind of in the early days at Victory are probably super dated, and I will embarrass myself. Like,
That's why
at a Mario Kart tournament.
When you
or
came
something like
back to Workhorse, I was really happy because I remember when you went into the coffee thing. Like I realized what you needed to take a step away, but like also like in my head I was like, why the fuck are you making coffee? Like you're an expert brewer. Like you need to be going back to making beer.
Yeah. One of a personal rewarding experience for me was running into Ron Barchet at Victory after I had said that I was going to go back to Workhorse, and I saw him and Dietrich at the bar there. Just randomly ran into them, and Ron said, "I'm really happy. Like you have a good skill set in beer. Like I'm happy that you're going back and using that skill." And that was nice because I always looked up to Ron a lot as a mentor.
Definitely.
And
when you were there, when you first started there, were they still hands on like
Absolutely.
production? And I just know like kind of both of them. Was it Ron was more the brewing side of it?
Yeah. And Bill did a lot of the sales and marketing side of it. He was involved in some of the brewing aspect for sure. I remember working with Bill on a recipe for the Brewers of PA. I want to say it was like a homebrew-esque, like, it was an anniversary of a homebrew ale. Oh gosh, I'm going to butcher the story. But I remember working with Bill on this recipe. It was for some, I think it was the amendment that made homebrewing legal in this country. Which when did that happen? With Jimmy
1979.
Carter? With Jimmy Carter, yeah. Jimmy Carter was president, and he kind of made that.
Yeah.
I think it was kind of to celebrate maybe an anniversary of that particular amendment or law or whatever.
Yeah.
And I'm working with Bill on this recipe, so I did get to like do some work with Bill, but I did a lot of work with Ron as far as like a lot of like Pilsner trials and Bach trials, and I remember working on homegrown and being like, Ron, come meet me at the brewery at 8:00 because I'm not happy with this.
I love homegrown.
R.I.P. baby. But yeah, there was I kind of worked with both of them, but yes, I would say Ron was more of like the production side of it, and Bill was more sales and marketing. But yeah, who knows now? I'm not sure. I haven't really spoken to much of them lately, so I still see Scott Dietrich, the old VP of Brewing Ops. A good
Yeah, where's he at? He's at Silly Putty.
yeah, which is right in KOP. So like he'll come by the tap room. Like
That's funny.
still shoot the shit. It's a small world. A lot of us know each other. A lot of us come from the Victory tree. Our roots run pretty deep. A lot of us are like starting down breweries or still kind of involved in the brew scene. I was just texting. Did you work with Garrison? And
Yeah.
So
He's at Russian River, right?
Yeah, 2 weeks ago I was at Russian River.
Oh, wow.
I took a vacation to California and I went to the Russian River pub. I was in Santa Rosa and I was like, hey man, hope everything's going well. And he's like, how could you come to town and not tell me you were here? And I was like, dude, I'm here for 2 days. Like I cannot, I'm sorry, I can't like fit one more thing in this very tiny trip. My wife will kill me if I'm like, we're going to go see my friend from
Yeah,
Victory.
wasted at the brewery.
Yeah, she's like, absolutely not. So we had a few pints there like in like 30 or 45 minutes and left and went to this cool concert. But yeah, it's a big tree and it's cool to see it kind of span the country a little bit. And, folks like Richie and I are still connected. That's great. It's really fun. I'm really happy.
Yeah, it's cool. Awesome. I guess, do you have anything else that you want to push for Workhorse or anything else?
I don't think so. I mean, drink our beer, please.
The Philly Light, I guess, is what you guys are pushing now?
Yeah, the Philly Light,
100 calories.
yes.
Oh,
And
nice.
we were trying to hit a calorie target. It was just one of those things where we brewed it and we said, let's measure the calories and carbs. We just know we wanted to hit 4% alcohol.
I like the 4% also.
Yes. 4% is like super crushable. I mean, 12-ounce can, 4% of that, I think a lot of the craft beer drinkers are used to the 16-ounce can, maybe a little higher ABV. When you pick up one of these, you're like, it's gone. And
Also, I don't know what happened. The last 3 years, Workhorse, the labels have gotten very much cooler.
yes.
Like the design work is I'm like very, very cool.
Really appreciate that. Yeah, we kind of updated
By the
some of
way,
branding.
I need to make a comment. So the skyline that you guys have there,
yeah.
Victory did the same thing in some other brands. I don't know, like if you need to like pay Comcast to use their building, but nobody ever has Comcast, and it's like the two biggest buildings in Philly.
That's a great question.
But nobody ever has the Comcast buildings on the skyline.
I'll have to ask the person that did the art for this if that was
And it's not just you guys; it's like everybody. Like I don't know if that's like a rule. Like, do you have to pay Comcast to draw a picture of their building?
You should be that shouldn't be a thing.
I don't know. I feel like if you build a skyscraper, it should be like a public thing.
Yeah.
I would agree, but things are weird. I mean, yeah, I hear what you're saying. I've seen folks, get cease and desist from, if you use like certain Eagles branding or Phillies branding, folks are going to be all over you to be like, guess what? You can't take that off your label.
Yeah.
But yeah, when's it? Where's it going to stop? Are the buildings going to? The people that built the building?
Benjamin Frank's gonna come out of the grave and
Yes.
sue you for.
Yeah, who made the Liberty Bell? He's gonna be pissed off that that's on a Liberty Bell ringer. He's like, get that off that label. I'm not getting any money for this, Yeah, I mean, that's just the world we live in, I suppose. That a lot of things are gonna get really complex there. I mean, I don't know if anyone has a patent on tie dye. Hopefully not. But luckily, most of our
Forrest Gump.
I think we try to go for like a little bit of a simpler branding as far as like, this is our beer, this is the brewery, this is the style, that's it. We've tried to avoid some of the frilly names and the figure out what's us. It's like our West Coast is called West Coast IPA, our New England's called New England IPA, our Golden Lager, which is the Munich Helles, is called Golden Lager. Like it's pretty straightforward. Philly Light Lager, easy money. Sip Trip, you might have to do a little bit of what is in this, but
Yeah, but you're selling that to a different audience than you're selling the rest of the beer.
absolutely. I think each little niche, like your core portfolio, maybe your seasonal portfolio, and then like your one-offs of like Sip Trip, which is a different customer altogether. Like they all have different avenues, so they can all have different branding to them. But it's we're all kind of figuring out this game of like what kind of works the best. I do think the tides are turning though, as far as like it being a beer, pure liquid driven product to like it's now more sales and marketing driven. As far as like, why are folks going to buy your stuff versus someone else's stuff? And that's fun. And we're going to continue to kind of innovate and do what we can in that space and make it work. Yeah.
Cool. So I guess we can find Workhorse at Workhorse. Do you know the social
At
media?
Workhorse Brewing on Instagram. Our website is workHorseBrewing.com. We're at 250 King Manor Drive in King of Prussia. Come by, check us out. Love that.
Nice. Cool. Well, thank you for coming on.
Yeah, it was my pleasure.
It was
so much
fun.
fun.
Definitely. And you can follow us at BrewedAt, at the BrewedAt podcast. Subscribe on YouTube. What else should they do?
5-star Spotify.
5 stars. Rate us. All right. We'll see you guys next week. Thank you.
That flew by, man.